Hey guys, this week we're going to be talking about character arcs and we're getting into some issues of plot. And while this class isn't a big on plotting, I do think it's important because voice ties into plot because characters gets inextricably tied with that when we're talking about voice and motivation and how the internal needs tie into the external what's happening, which is perfect for this week since you're actually diving into, you know, actually writing and getting this final project and getting these 10 to 15 pages written. And I know we're really aiming for 10, so you can do it. Come on, guys. It's okay if you don't quite get that many written. I don't want you to just, give up and not write. So, but you can do it. You guys can do it. Yay! I'll be your cheerleader from the internets here. So, and while some or a bunch of this lesson is thinking in bigger term projects for like a novel length project, it all applies, and a lot of this applies at a scene level. So what I'm going to talk about today on the video is going to be more of the scene level stuff so that it's more useful to you this week as you're writing. Okay, so first what I'm going to talk about is tension, which a lot of you are familiar with since you have been writing, even if you're a beginner, you have some idea of this. Tension is just the basic idea of, this is why at the very beginning of the class I asked, what does your character want? This is the first thing you need to figure out with voice, but it's also very important at a much smaller level, at a scene level. What does your character want in this scene? And the basic of tension is your character wants something at a scene, and the tension of is, does your character get it or not? So at the scene, your character wants something, and by the end of the scene, they've either gotten closer or further away from it. And whether they got closer or further away, that's the catalyst to the next scene. If they got closer, then the catalyst is, what's the next step to get it? If they failed, then what's the next step to fix that? So that's like, I sent you that video on try-fail cycle, or I sent you the podcast link in an email. That's a kind of classic way to move you forward in a novel is, action, reaction, action, like basic physics, that's kind of how novels work. And so tension is all about, and having something at stake is all about your character wants something and they either get it or don't, and that moves you on. So, so when I start out saying, so one of the little mini chapter headings is no unmotivated scenes. And so even as you're writing your scene for the final project, think about it going into it. What does my character want for this scene? And when they're going in, how do they view the other characters in the scene? And yeah, just think about all these things. Put yourself in the body of your character. Think about their external felt needs. So yeah, when you're thinking about the wants, think about what their felt needs are. If they're going into like an audition for a play, what do they want to come out of it? What do they expect to come out of it? And then think about their unfelt needs, maybe their insecurities, maybe their other things, so that you're aware of that going in. Okay, so then I go on to some of the other like tricks of the trade. So one of those is reversals. I've mentioned this before in the course material, and this is my favorite. And this is an easy way if you're wondering what to do for your scene. Reversals are the best, it's an easy way to go for your scene. A reversal it's starting out with the same idea of attention. Your character either has a goal or even just an expectation or hope. So they go into a job interview expecting to get the job, or they go into a play audition expecting to get the part, or they go back to school expecting to be with their boyfriend. And then slowly by the events of the chapter, the opposite occurs. And then that's great. What reversals do is often, so they're unexpected, and because of that, because your character is disappointed or their hopes and expectations are disappointed, you get to feel for them. It's a way to bring out those insecurities, or to bring out, it just brings out emotions in your character. And that's what we're all trying to get at through voice, is to get at your character, to get at the underneath. There's no better way to get to know somebody than when the rug is pulled out from underneath them, Not to mention, it's a great way to build conflict and, raise stakes when they're not getting what they want or what they expected. So, yeah, reversals are awesome, and they happen all the time. You'll see them in shows, and sitcoms are always doing this because it's great for a 30-minute format. And it's great for humor. Like, reversals are also great for humor. Like the classic when a woman gets up and she's like, this is going to be the best day. And then, classic, her heels getting stuck in the concrete and breaks off, snaps off. She drops coffee all over herself right before she meets a handsome man. And, everything that can go wrong goes wrong. But it has to start with, she had a perfect day or whatever. She's expecting the best. So yeah, reversals are a fabulous tool if you're wondering where to go with your scenes. So expectation, opposite. Pretty obvious. And I also get into this in another subheading, is where you start with a happy moment and then you go for the gut punch. Like they do this in The Walking Dead. They'll have I remember this one scene where, Rick, and it was there when he had his wife, and they were at the prison, and they're all just looking around at each other, and it's like, finally there's this moment of peace. They fought so hard and it's just all been horrible, but there's this moment of peace and safety, and they look at each other, and it's just like, oh, thank gosh, we're safe for once. And the camera lingers on that moment, and they're setting up their laundry and letting it flap in the breeze. So there's that nice, kind of down home moment. And you get to feel the emotional happiness of that moment. And then the zombies attack. So there's that also moment where you're bringing your readers in with you, and then you gut punch them. So reversals are also good for that, for really manipulating your readers' emotions. And that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to make our readers feel, we're trying to pull them into our characters' emotions, and we're trying to learn more about our characters and get deeper into our characters through some of these tools. Other ways that you can use scenes or ideas for scenes that can help you with character and to get it closer to voice. So another favorite is mirroring. It's where the external plot will mirror something internally going on with your character's emotions. So this is another favorite one they have on TV, where the cop will be solving a case. So a dad is having a fight with his daughter. The cop is having a fight with his daughter at the beginning of the story. They'll do the family moment, cop arguing with his daughter, and then he'll go on a case where there was a runaway kid, a runaway teenager, and it all ended horribly or whatever, as he solves the murder and stuff. And then at the end of the episode, he's making up with his own daughter and realizing, and there's a tender moment where he realized that, they could have it so much worse or whatever, and how important it is to stay connected to his own daughter. And that's where, so it's obvious that the external stuff that was happening in the case was a mirror of what was happening in his own internal life at home, and that helped him work through some of the stuff where he realized he didn't need to be as much of a, so authoritarian or whatever to his daughter, because their relationship was more important. So that's another thing you can do, is where you have the external situation of a scene mirror internal things that are going on with your character that are important. And so you can do this for a whole novel, but you can also do it at a scene level. And so I've done that a lot, where it's just a great thing to do as a scene. If you're wondering, what do I do with the scene? What do I do with the scene? Well, it's another go-to, like a reversal. Okay, and so then the other thing that I think is practical from this lesson, so I have some other tricks in there, like using foil characters, and which I talk about as reactionary. I'm not gonna be anything like my parents when I grow up. This is another like great plot thing that you can use to help as a character arc. And there's some other, and then I go into talking about kind of, I show some like maps, but they're not maps. What are they called? Like some charts of character arcs that I've seen. Like there's the healthy one, the classic tension rises, and then there's a dark moment, and then it resolves, and there's the climax, and then resolution. And that's a pretty healthy character arc. But then there's a lot of unhealthy character arcs. And so I'll show you some plots, some pictures of how those can go wrong. But even though we're not talking, even though you're not writing novels necessarily right now, read through those, because there's some insights that come out from those. But even if you're just really working on your own thing right now, skip to the one that has a little heading called plot map. And again, that's getting to working at a scene level. So plot mapping is something I started doing, again, the hard way and the wrong way, because my plots were getting away from me, and I was not doing the thing that I'm telling you guys, to link the character emotional arc and the plot together. So again, as you're working through just writing your scenes and working on this final project, you don't have to be just don't worry and don't stress out about doing all of this at once, okay? Just get writing and just start getting a feel for, your character. Just start getting a feel for it. But if you can start trying to think about ways where, when you're doing an external scene, just try to think about ways where you're also including the character's emotional life in that scene. That's kind of the basic of this class. You want to include your character's emotional life. That's what voice is all about, and making those thought bubbles come through the action, and making their observations about the world, and making their person come through the text. So in a plot map, it's basically, for each chapter, each scene, I ask myself 2 questions. I ask myself, what's the plot work getting done, and what's the character work getting done? So it's basically, what's the external work getting done, and what's the internal work getting done? So external work, I think like an author. I think, how is the story moving forward? What is that external plot, point A to point B? Like, I talk about these as like peg points on a map, or on that chart that I've painted out for you. I want I want the points on it. So for what's the plot work, I'm asking myself, what is getting accomplished here? We're moving from point A to point B, so that's one thing. Literally, where are they in space and time? Who's getting introduced in here? And then what's being accomplished? Am I setting up the character's emotional arc? So I need to show them as, insecure. And so this sounds a little esoteric, so go read. I put it better down in the chapter. I actually show you what I mean through our example of Katniss and the Hunger Games, and then I show you what I mean. Like, I kind of gave you the plot map, the plot work and the character work being done by my most recent book that I'm working on. And it's not like hard. It's just something I jot down, because I also talk about, like, people say if they're plotters or pantsers, aka do they write by the seat of their pants, or do you sit down and really heavily outline? And I'm actually more of a pantser. I kind of write by the seat of my pants, but I do sit down and ask myself these two questions before I write a scene. What am I trying to do plot-wise, aka what are my characters' goals, what do they want, and how am I going? And the other thing I ask myself in this plot work part is there going to be a reversal or a reveal? And this is something I got off of Kristen Kashore's editor. In an interview, she said that's what her editor always asks her about a chapter. Is there a reveal or a reversal? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the best, smartest thing I've ever heard. Is there a reveal or a reversal? That means a chapter or a scene is actually worth being there. So reversals we already talked about. Reveal is there a big reveal of information that's like, dun dun dun? And this can be even smaller. Like in Hunger Games, the dun 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 is, it's Katniss's sister that got pulled out of the hat. But that was also a reversal, because Katniss, if anybody, was expecting her own name to get pulled out because she'd put it in so many times by selling it, basically. So yeah, is there a reveal or a reversal? Plot work, character work, what's the internal thing being done? So yeah, that's the basics. If that got confusing about the plot work and plot map part, just read it, because I think I said it a lot more clearly in the thing. It's really just easy. Ask yourselves 2 questions before you start writing a scene. If you're confused and don't have direction for what you're doing, but if you're not and you're writing, then just go. Then just go with it, because that's great. Because all of it, I don't want anything in this class to stop you from the basic of just write. Voice can be during editing, anything. All of this, I just don't want to intimidate you. I want it to be inspiring and exciting. All of the readings, I want to just be inspiring. I want you to be like reading the stuff from the readings and being like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. How do they do that? I'm so inspired after reading that. I want to just write now. That's what I used to do sometimes before I'd start writing. I would just read somebody like Margaret Atwood, or I'd read a little bit of Barbara Kingsolver. And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. All I want to do is write now. So yes, so get writing this week. The reading from this week is optional, because I realize that the coursework, the lecture, is long, and I want you to just get writing. But so even if you don't have a chance to read it this week, just download it and save it for later, because it's really cool. And what I'm talking about, these peg points along the plot map, I picked 3 selections from within a novel where you can just see the character changing, and it's so cool. It's from one of my favorite novels, The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simmons. And then I do like an analysis at the end where where I talk about how you can look at her language and see how she's changing language things, that show the character changing. It's just genius. So even if you don't get a chance to read it this week, make sure you save it so you can read it later, because yeah, this is genius, and we all need to be getting inspired by this stuff. Okay, happy writing this week. Okay, and I'll talk to you guys in chat. Bye.